Om Shri Sai Ram. We will start today's session with three Omkars.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram, and a very, very warm welcome to all members from the Sai family. My name is Jeetu Punjabi. I'm a student of Swami's College, and it is my privilege, prized privilege, to be in conversation or to host a very special guest today. We have Venu Srinivasan, who is the chairman of Sundaram Clayton, TVS Motors. He's vice chairman of the Tata Trust. He's on the board of Tata Sons and Cummins, and he's also a recipient of the Padma Bhushan, a very, very person with great accomplishments. And the interesting point, welcome Venu, welcome to our session, and thank you for joining us. But I'll complete the introduction, Venu. When I last week asked Venu that we'd like to introduce you, the key point he made was my most prized privilege in terms of introduction is that I'm a child of Swami, I'm a student, or I'm a boy in Swami's institution, and that is my most prized privilege. So I would welcome you, Venu. Thank you. And this is a conversation which is going to be for us to get a perspective on a very different side of you, of a child of Swami who has achieved so much, and talking to the rest of the Sai family to get a very different perspective on you. Now, before we tee off, I would like to first give a big thank you to the people behind the curtains who have done so much work. Jai Shankar and Siddharth, who very silently host this show and without ever coming up and saying anything. I would like to say a big thank you for creating this platform and giving us opportunity, giving everybody an opportunity in the Sai family to have these both very beautiful sessions. Venu, if you're okay, we can start off with the Q&A, or would you like to say a few words before we do that?
Sri Sai Narayana Charanau Sharanam Prapatye Srimate Sai Narayanaya Namaha. First, I offer my pranams at Swami's lotus feet. You can start now.
I think Jeetu, you're on mute. You're on mute, Jeetu.
Sorry, I've lost the voice.
Okay, sorry. I think there was a problem on the mute.
Yeah, come back.
Okay, so let's start chronologically in this journey of yours with Swami, which started about 3 decades ago. And I think the classic question, just for the group to understand, the whole family to understand your beginnings with Swami, how did it evolve? How did Swami enter your life? And how did you accept him as a guru? If you can start there, just go through the journey and help us get some perspective on that.
Swami entered our family at the periphery when my sister-in-law got married to Mr. V. Srinivasan's son, who was the president of Satyasai organization. And therefore happened to meet Swami, I remember 92, I think, or 91 or 92, in Mr. V. Srinivasan's house. And okay, it was fine. Didn't make a, Swami, Sai Baba is a great person. Then what happened, my wife had gone to see Swami, I think in 92. And Swami said, bring your husband, you come. And I was not very inclined to go at that time. And so finally I said, because my wife had given her word, I said, let's go to Vrindavan. At least he's in Bangalore, we'll go. And typically with Swami, I was standing in front of him outside Trai with about 10 or 12 people. And I was right in front of him. And he greeted and saw the eye of everybody except me. Even though I was right there, he beautifully evaded your eyes and met everybody else. And then Swami came to Chennai in 93 January. And he came to my father-in-law's house. So, you know, propriety and respect demanded that we should be there. And Swami gave an interview and everything. And then I went to see him in Sundaram. Swami came up to me. I started saying something. He said, I know everything. Like, "Ellam theriyum." And Swami walked away with V. Srinivasan. And he told him, I asked this boy to come to Parthi. He comes everywhere but Parthi. He comes to Brindavan, he comes to Sundaram. Ask him to come to Parthi. At that time, it was a divine command. Even though I didn't think of Swami as God or Avatar at that time, it was still a person of eminence, person was spiritual. And therefore, when he said you should come, I had to go. And that was a time when I was really in business terms, at the bottom. We had gone through almost a BAFR situation of restructuring. Went in March to Parthi. And Swami, first 2 days didn't call us, or first day or 2 days didn't call us for interview. And evening, lunch and dinner will tell V. Srinivasan, what, Mama, what is it? When will Swami see us? He said, I'll tell him. Later only we realized he dared not tell Swami because his job was only to bring you there. So it went on 1 day, 2 days. And then second day he saw us. I think second day evening or something. Or third day morning. I'm not sure. But first thing Swami has said, look at this boy, because I do know some astrology. He said it's bad time. So it was bad time. So Swami says it's good time. March has come, march forward. Never look back.
Wow.
And that's how the journey started. And he said, come to Kodaikanal, be my guest. And I can tell you, it was quite an exhilarating experience. When you went to Kodaikanal, from the gate, everybody says, Swami's guest, Swami's guest. We're treated like Prime Minister coming to see Swami. And for 2 days, we were with Swami, or 3 days. And then we saw Swami speak for 8-10 hours, non-stop. And the flow of wisdom was like the Ganga flowing in Rishikesh. Endlessly and rapidly, just, and Swami gets somebody to ask a question which he wants to answer actually. So that question comes to your mind, and I have seen it happen to myself later on. Then started coming twice a year or something like that. 94, again he asked us to come. And 94 was the time when really the inner dam broke. When I was sitting in Kodai. And really the yearning of the past and all the built up karma of janmas just broke. And the feeling at that time, I couldn't see Aarti. You felt that your chest would explode and your neck will get constricted. It was impossible to sit during Aarti in Kodai in 94. Till that one day, it broke. And after that, you reach that, we experienced that, if you remember, with the Korean Buddhist teacher in meditation. You reach that ecstasy point. And then, once the dam breaks, you become open to Swami's influence, to Swami's teaching. And slowly, that journey started in 94. And typically, as Swami does after that, I did not get to go inside and really attend the sessions in Kodai for 4-5 years. 2 years you got it in a row. And then Swami will come and say, Swami, I want to come. I will see. And Swami, Dekhta hai means I will see. What he will see, we don't know. And so the process started slowly. I remember 95, I had to leave the birthday celebration, and that was huge. That was, I think, the biggest crowd. You couldn't breathe there. There were so many people inside the ashram in Prashanti. And I had to tell Swami that evening after the uh, convocation, I said, Swami, I have to go to Delhi. He said, go. So 22nd I was there, 23rd I was not there. And I had to meet Narsum Rao. It was fairly uh, lots of tensions that you are aware of in business with partnerships. And so I had to go and see him. So then around 96, 97, I can't recall a time when actually it happened. But slowly you started accepting Swami as your guru who will give you Atma Vidya. There is no doubt at that time he was my guru, he was my supreme guru. And in Vaishnava tradition, you leave it to the guru to take care of your moksha. It is the guru's, in Vaishnava tradition, the guru intercedes.
Hmm.
In somewhat like Catholic tradition. So it is not your seeking alone, but we always believe you need the grace of the guru. So Swami was my guru. But the interesting thing in all this, I had been searching since about 91 end, reading every book on Raman Maharishi, going to Ramanashram, walking barefoot around the Pradakshina of the Giri, which is 13 kilometers on barefoot, was quite a task.
Hmm.
And yearning for, and Ramana said that God would come as your guru. Bhagavan Raman Maharishi had said, you yearn, God will come as guru. And here, God in guru form was calling you, and I was not responding. That's the beauty of the Swami's play.
Hmm.
So, around 96, 97, 98, I can't tell you exactly what happened. 99, a singular thing happened. When Swami asked me to design and supervise the construction of the mandir in Madurai. And then I used to see Swami almost every month. You had to report to him how the work was going, show him the design alternatives. So we had one in a Vijayanagar style, we had one in a Pallava style, Hoysala style, and then he chose the Vijayanagar style, which is more akin to what is there in Parthi
Hmm.
or in the super specialty hospitals, both of them. So Swami chose that, started work on it. VS was very, very helpful because he knew how to work in Swami's organization, which I didn't know. We made a lot of mistakes. And there are some very interesting conflicts. Some people carry tales to Swami. Swami, they're not carrying out your instructions. No, this fellow is doing whatever he wants to do. And when we go to Swami, he'll say, don't listen, you do whatever I tell you to do. And he'll be telling them, oh, they're not, Venu doesn't listen. I will tell him when he comes next time.
Hmm.
So I didn't know about all this till actually it was complete, it was over. Then one day, we took out the Sarva Dharma sign on the gate. And they went and told Swami, they've taken the Sarva Dharma sign also, Swami. What we intended to do was make a much bigger Sarva Dharma sign on top of the building. Otherwise, this thing on the gate was blocking the elevation of people are walking in. So Swami said, oh, is that so? So all this went on, and finally the inauguration took place. And that time was a very, very important moment for me in my relationship with Swami. Because right through that inauguration, he held my hand and walked with me. Right around, I was holding Swami's hand and walking with me. And Swami said, speak. I tried to speak. I said a few words. He was very, very cut up, and he said, is this a speech? I kept quiet and sat down. And after that mandir, was open, we hosted a big tea for Swami and his people are traveling with him, students and devotees, at Batlagundu, at the forest thing. Malika had spruced it up and it served a very, very good tea. And I couldn't go to Kodai. Had I gone that time I would have been treated, you know how Swami would have treated you after you had done this. The Swami was very happy. And Swami said, "You are not coming?" And you don't know, he just broke because Swami knows you're not able to come. And Swami knows you want to come. But there was a very interesting lessons in that. That was a really, I would say, a very important milestone in my relationship with Swami. I had laid red granite there. I didn't know much about building ornamental buildings. I knew factory buildings and simple offices that we had at that time with vinyl flooring. So this was plain red granite, no borders, no design. My civil engineer planned it. And the granite was of varying colors, shades of red. So when I went there 1 month before, I was really upset. So what I did, I got this red thin carpet and stuck it on top of the granite right through. These people had told Swami, actually it was not ready. You know, they put a carpet and covered up. The floor was not ready. Then the day Swami came back from Kodai and left, I took it out and we removed the entire flooring. He really had broke it because it was all fixed with cement. So to break the entire flooring. They went and told Swami, "See, I told you, Swami, it was not ready. They have now broken the entire flooring." And Swami said, "Is that so?" And I was given a budget by Swami. Now, this breaking and relaying, I could not tell Swami. So I took care of that expenditure. At that time, it was a reasonable sum of money when you look at money value 30 years ago, 22 years ago. So one day I went to Mandir. "Where are you?" I said, "Swami, I come for my regular visit, Swami." "No, I asked you to come and you didn't come." I said, "Nobody told me, Swami. I came because my time to come, because my schedule to come." He called me. "How much did it cost?" I said, "I don't know, Swami." "How much did it cost?" I said, "I won't tell you, Swami." So then, Swami stoops to conquer like a mother. He said, "Bangaru, I had promised them that I would build it. Now, if you have contributed to it, there's an element of corruption in that. The purity is gone. Because it is no longer Swami, but somebody else has also contributed. Well, Swami had told them, I will build it." So I named the amount. He brought out a checkbook, made me sign, gave it to Chiranjeevi Rao and said, "Give this boy a draft." Said, "When are you going?" I said, "After Darshan, Swami." Before he leaves, give him the check. This was such a big lesson for me. How exact is Swami's word? There's only purity and truth.
So beautiful journey as you first 7, 8, 9 years by when you really kind of felt Swami's, your guru, your God, your support, everything. And it was a beautiful journey to go through the first 7 years, 7, 8 years. Actually, just take us through. I've heard you say this many times, and also as your introduction went, that Swami said you used to say that you are Swami's child, you're Swami's boy, and as Swami would talk to the boys and say good boy or this, you prize that relationship. Talk to us a little bit about what happens there and your relationship with Swami in that format.
I will come to that, but I want to say one more thing. How Swami's relationship is heart to heart. There is no middleman. There is no agent, no broker. So, second or third time, 94, Malika and I had gone there. Morning, we had just gone for one darshan. Darshan was over at the break time, or previous day, we must have stayed overnight. Next day morning, darshan was at break time. We said, please come and have breakfast. So I went to breakfast. He said, I am going. I said, we'll come with you. Here comes Swami. Next time, Swami called me. Venu doesn't come to see. He came to see VS. He didn't come to see me. Then 1 month later, he was in He was in Bangalore, in Vrindavan. My father-in-law had come. He told my father-in-law, you see Venu? He comes to see VS. He doesn't come to see me. And he told me, never leave without taking leave. There is nobody between us. It's heart to heart. So after that, till only once it happened when Swami was in hospital, didn't come for darshan, both the days, that I had to leave without taking leave in 2011. So from that time in 94 to 2011, whatever the function was, I would move. Wherever I find my way, push my way through, move, where I can at least look at Swami, I will not, he will not. Then I know Swami has given me permission to go. So that is how the Swami's relationship is heart to heart. Now coming to my boy, that is singularly the most moving experience I've had with Swami. It happened much later, sometime in the 2000s. Quite good 10, 15 years after I'd come to Swami, or more, maybe 20 years. No, 15 years. So Swami, my mother wanted to see Swami. So I asked Swami, he said, ask her to come. You bring her. And then my mother wanted to have a private interview. So I was sitting in the interview room and Swami took her inside to the private interview room. Finished the interview, came out. My mother came back happy. Swami came behind. Like a flute, he was melodious. He was saying, Venu. And my mother was very moved. He said, for me, he's a very fine boy, Swami. He's a fine boy, but he's my boy. You don't have objections, no? He asked my mother. He said, you keep him, Swami. So that is really the most wonderful relationship you can have with Swami. Second time, Mr. Brijmohan Munjal of Hero Motors, who is a doyen and a guru figure to everybody in the automotive industry. He was in the sports day and my bikes were running. So he asked him, do you know whose bikes they are? He said, I know Swami Venu's bikes, but he's a good boy. So he asked me, Venu, he didn't say you're a good man, you're a good boy. I said, good boy is the highest certificate you can get from Swami, more than a PhD.
Beautiful, beautiful. It gives us a beautiful insight into the heart-to-heart relationship and the reason you prized the relationship of a boy of Swami more than any of the accolades or any of the titles you have amassed over the years. Venu, can we also, we'd love to get a little bit of an insight. I mean, from the early 90s, we've heard you were a tough person. You would, you could get anything done, but there was a way you would. And now the gentle soul that we are seeing here, talk a little bit about the transformation journey with Swami. How did he touch the soft points, and what do you think has changed in you over these years as a boy of Swami?
See, first, when you come to Swami, Swami has said it in the Shirdi form. I give you what you want. So one day, you will want what I want to give you. So as it happens with Swami in the first 10 years, almost everything I asked was granted. If you look at 1993, my company was a 180 crore company. Today it's 100 times bigger. But Swami wanted, we had some difference of opinion, Suzuki, that parting took place. We launched the Victor. He said it will take you somewhere. And that Victor bike made TVS. Today, what TVS is was made by that bike, although we've had setbacks after that. So initially, there are two things I want to say. I've always had this great yearning for a guru. Because that must have come from past vasanas. One day when Swami was going for either a sports day or in the Carnatic music school, he was going for just to visit the students. It was beautiful how he was training them. No, little higher. No, that must go a little lower. So I can't sing. My sa and the other sa are both sound the same. So Swami said, so when he got into the car, I was so moved. I said, Swami, what I must done in my past janmam to be here with you. What janmam? Janmas, he told me.
Wow.
So that is, so obviously while I was very warrior-like, very Martian, very driven, a lot of anger, a lot of energy. While coming to Swami, slowly, it took a long time. It did not happen overnight. But over a period of 20 years with Swami, 18 years in that body, slowly that anger, because anger comes out of desire. Desire that is unfulfilled leads to anger, anguish. So you realize that finally everything Swami does, but it is a long journey. I would not say that I came to Swami and it happened. Like he said, Janmas, it takes years of journeying with Swami to reach a sense of equanimity. And that was really epitomized when students come to for industrial tour. I always used to talk to them and have lunch with them till a few years ago. Last 5-6 years, it has not happened. But so one day, and there's a question and answer session always at the end of my talk before lunch. So one of them said, sir, can I ask you a question if I'm personal? He said, what? And that was the time you remember, since you're in that business, 2007 onward, my stock price kept going down and down and down. And sales were going down, profits were going down. In 2007, on a consolidated basis, we reached a break even. So that low. So as they said, sir, how is it every time you come every month? And we see you come smiling. And you sit there and you go back smiling. So I asked them this. They have nothing to do with each other. That is the way the world is and your karma is and your life business going. It's not pleasant. It's painful. It's not a pleasure. But when you come to Swami, there's only bliss. So why should I not be smiling? Swami will take care of that. I only have to take care of my devotion to Swami. And if there's pain, you have to put up with it because Swami takes away karma. It's like coming to the sun, like the moth to the lamp. It gets burnt. And all your ego and karma and all your past gets burnt. And then you're pure. So Swami wants to make you into a jewel. So he has to heat you, beat you to purify the gold and then make you an ornament worthy of himself. So that is how it slowly you start realizing that. Even today I get anger, but far, far less than what it used to be. Maybe 90% less than what it used to be.
Vinu, if we can change gears, so you have, you have engaged on this huge activity of restoring hundreds of temples in South India. You're chairman of the Sri Rangam Temple Trust, and you have this huge restoration activity that's going on. So, what can you give us a little insight into what was the inspiration and how did this intersect with your love for Swami and in your interactions with Swami? How did this play out?
I started a construction of a temple. At that time, I still use the word I start. Now I won't. So now Swami starts, Swami does. You are just standing there. But somebody had told me there's a beautiful Ram temple, an unusual Ram in a yogic pose, not with arms, no bow, no kodanda in his hand, no knife or sword or arrow. And I had done that, started that temple. And that was a similar time when I went to Swami. I started the temple in 92, 91 December actually. And within a year, I came to Swami. So I always think of that temple as what led me to on the path to Jnana. So I went there. We went to temple was over, and the minister who came for the inauguration consecration said there are these 9 Navatirupatis in Tirunelveli. They are very important for Vaishnava tradition. You must look after them. If our child or Narayana, being a Vaishnava, doesn't look after them, who will look after them? And he was from my district, knew the family. So it was during the first Arati of the consecration that he asked. I said, here, Ram is asking. I can't, I have to say yes. And then my wife was, you're only 40 years old, you're going to take these 9 huge temples. How are you going to do? 94, we were in Parthi, Kodai. They will ask Swami. I said, Swami, government asked me, Vaishnav duty, go do your duty. He didn't let me complete the question. So people say many times, and Swami has said this, don't spend your money on temples, but on doing service to humanity. But there's also a tradition in Puranic thing that restoring an old temple is equal to the punya of doing 1,000 new temples. So clearly these are temples where Nammalvar lived, and these 9 gods gave darshan to this child sitting inside the bole of a tree who would move. It was so hallowed and saintly that time had come to restore. So Swami said, restore it. Then after that, many more have come. Swami has led that. But there's a very interesting corollary to this. I never wanted to do service to humanity or mankind. I was very happy building temples, doing something in Swami's place. If Swami had allowed me to build a temple inside the mandir, he inaugurated a small temple. I would have been very happy to build. In fact, I showed him a plan and he told me, one day I will let you build. So we started this work and we realized that there's no connect between the temple and the society. Society was steeped in poverty, mired in poverty. Well, the temple had come out very well. So we started engaging the temple, around the temple, doing the school, primary health center, the Anganwadi, then getting the women to find out what waste there is, convert the waste to wealth. The biggest waste was women's time. They were not doing anything with their time. So got self-help groups, poultry, selling vadas or dosas or idlis or whatever. So in many ways, we started engaging all the women. That income started upgrading the society and the society grew. At one time, the chairman of Times of India group was well known to me, Mrs. Jain, came to my mother's house and said, I want to see you. I said, okay, I went. Said, I don't want to talk to you ever again. I said, why, auntie, you called me to tell me this? She said, your mother tells me of all the wonderful work you're doing in villages, but there is not even a booklet on it. For me, love all, serve all was a tennis score. It was not a creed to live by. So she said, prepare reports. I prepared a report and proudly took it to Swami. And inside the interview room, I said, Swami, my annual report. Swami took it like this and put it with his left hand on the window along with all the things, just threw it actually. And said, where in the Samacharam, what else Samachar is there? You never wanted to do. Who made you do? Swami made you do. Swami's teaching to me has never been by words. It has always been subtle. Like telling me your relationship with me is not because VS is related to you. It's heart to heart. You didn't do all this service. I made you do. And today we've taken it to 5,000 villages.
So beautiful, beautiful journey there. And did you use all the management techniques and leadership techniques, EQM and the other things you put to work in factories? Did you optimize the effort through that? Because 5,000 villages is a large number. How did you achieve scale? It could be a learning for most other corporate leaders to copy this exercise.
You know,
emulate.
Nimesh Bhai can appreciate what I'm saying. VS had asked me to come and present it to all the state presidents. VS couldn't come that day. So me and Ashok Joshi was the chairman of the foundation. We made the presentation. You won't believe, after the presentation, 2 flowers, one by one, from Swami's picture, because Swami was not in the physical body then, flew 4 feet forward. They didn't fall down. And landed on both sides of Swami's chair at the same angle, same distance. So one I kept for my daughter and one I gave to Mr. Joshi. So presenting, they were saying, first, what did we do? We said we are not here as moral police. We are not going to antagonize the local administration, be there corruption, indifference, slothfulness. That is, all governments are the same, whether this district or another district. Let us work with the government and how to help people. I didn't have that much money then. So how do we become a force multiplier? Azim Premji had told me, Venu, for every rupee you spend, there must be 10 rupees of outcome. Today, we can say there's 60 rupees of outcome for every rupees you spend. Or 40 rupees of outcome, 30 rupees of outcome. But it is significantly more because we started harnessing the local people. And they created the wealth. So it's not what we gave them. We are not a donor organization. So we define ourselves as one of social transformation and empowerment. So if you go into these societies, people are happier. There's less domestic violence. There is less crime. There's more hygiene. You don't find garbage lying around. So it is a holistic transformation based on TQM.
Okay, beautiful. The other thought that comes to my mind when I see you interact, you see the corporate world, your peers in the corporate world. Often you meet a lot of very powerful people in society, the influencers, the people who run governments. You see a lot of people and you see a lot of different things happening that may not be in line with your thinking. How do you hold your own, keep up with Swami's words, and still play the game and win? What's the secret of that?
See, I've always looked at it like the role of, take Rama or Krishna, they teach us. Rama, what did he do with Vali in hiding? Which is against the principles of a warrior. Krishna said, I won't use the weapon, but he eclipsed the sun with his weapon. He used it, may not be to kill somebody, but he created the eclipse. He also, that Ashwatthama something Kunjaraha, where Ashwatthama the elephant died, and he blew his conch, the other weapon, and silence. So only Drona heard that Ashwatthama had died. And although he said, I will not take part but a charioteer, the final thing when Arjuna had to get off the chariot, Krishna says, you get off the chariot first. And Arjuna is offended. I, the warrior, must get off only after the charioteer gets off. And Swami says, no. So Arjuna got off, and when Swami got off, it went up in flames. He said, now you see, you were not, all those astras was being absorbed by his chariot because I was driving it, and by Hanuman on the flag. So you have to play the role of being worldly. Don't go and wear Swami on your shoulder, wear your heart on your sleeves. Your relationship with Swami, yeah, everybody knows, but don't go there and talk morality and principles and dharma and all that. But you do your dharma. But when you are with them, you mingle with them as one of them. There are four kinds of people. My teacher taught me, my traditional teacher was a yogi, a very advanced yogi. The first kind, Uttama, is those who are traditional in their appearance and also dharmic in their practice inside their heart. They are Uttama. The second grade, he told me, are people like you. You dress with pant and shirt. In fact, I used to see him with pant and shirt. Although he was a very traditional yogi, he would never object to my coming in pants and shirt. So go, and he said, but inside, they are astikas. Outside, they look secular, but inside, they are astikas. They're also okay. Second grade. Third grade, he said, those who are nastikas, but outside also they spout nastika. They have to be true to their thought, action, and word is congruent. So the worst category is those who wear traditional clothes outside, but are nastikas inside. So when you're moving in society, you have to hide your astika thing and move with them as one of them. It's very important.
Okay, beautiful analogy to explain the answer to this. So you know, when I look at the titles and I look at the accolades and I look at the achievements, they're absolutely stellar. I mean, all the chairmanships and boards, and more than that, the respect that you have earned in both the corporate world and the social world for what you achieved. The one question that naturally follows out of this is what's next. Is there something in your mind that's an unfinished agenda? Are there things that you're looking forward to, or how do you think of the next years going forward?
I think the next period is to groom my children so they take over the reins. Already substantially it's happening. Second is to carry forward the village program, because now we deeply believe that serving them is truly service of Swami. Serving the Aridra Narayana is the true service. Milton, on his blindness, when his blindness comes, he says, does God exact day labor, light denied? But he said, quickly the thought comes, thousands are speeding over land and sea at his bidding. He doesn't need you. They also serve who stand and wait. So now you realize that you don't have to do anything. Just go by Swami will lead you. So I have to take it. My dream is at least to 10,000 villages. It may happen if Swami wills. It may not happen. But that is my dream. And the inner journey. So you have to keep following the inner journey. So see the Swami inside. Now, how many times Swami has said, do you think this body is Swami? One day he said, don't take Pada Namaskar, take it inside you. Being a Vaishnava, there are two aspects. The Visishtadvaita form is where you are the Jivatma and Paramatma and you merge. Ultimately, when you reach Jnana Yoga, you are what's inside you itself is the Paramatma. But Ramakrishna Paramahamsa always extolled this Visishtadvaita, although he was an Advaiti, saying it's too enjoyable a play of the Bhakta and mother. To me, Swami was a universal mother. I never thought of Swami as God, even till the end. Swami is everything, but he was my mother. It is that relationship comes only in Bhakti Yoga. And it's too enjoyable to give up for plain jnana that I have got.
Yeah.
To hold his hands and cry.
You've had some very, very fortunate moments to have experienced that love and then been so deeply touched by it. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful position.
I remember once Guardia or Puppet was there, and I put my head on Swami's lap and cried. Not for him, I cried for him. I didn't have any worldly thing to cry for. Swami had to go change his clothes and come back. Half an hour delay in darshan that day because of the break. So once Nimesh Bhai was telling me, I heard you howling inside. I thought this boy must be having some serious problems. I had one problem. I want Swami.
Beautiful feelings. I mean, from the times I have spent there, I would say I've heard that Swami say so many times that don't want Swami's creations, want the Creator Himself, and it's a beautiful feeling to have. Actually, from you spent a lot of time. You've had the great fortune of spending a lot of time with Swami on the portico in Kodai, in all the other places with Swami. It would be beautiful to hear some of those touching experiences that you've been through for us to get some insight. Anything that you could talk about without.
I will tell you one thing. So one of the early days when Swami started this Lingodbhava, he had stopped it. I didn't know he had stopped it. I was not with Swami then. But he started it in 96 or I'm not sure which year, but somewhere he started it. And I was sitting in the veranda and this Swami shows everybody and passes by without showing me. My Swami is not showing it to me. So I ran behind Swami and caught his hand. From behind him, I caught his hand. And he turned around and with his big hair, I thought Narasimha himself had come. That's the end. He looked at me, glared, looked at me and said, Bangaru, and put it on my head. And I went back very happy. My Swami is now shown it to me. And the others, including Raju from Delhi, Raj, and Bhagia Professor was there. They said, all of us crowded. Now the Venu's got it, we'll also get. Swami still got so angry. Go get back. So these are sometimes unusual moments. Like on my birthday, I was sitting right in the front in the Vice Chancellor's place because Vice Chancellor had gone back at the break. So I went and sat there. So Swami came, looked at me. Why is this fellow sitting in the Vice Chancellor's seat? He said, what? A birthday, Swami. Birthday. Anandam, come. So he took me inside the interview room. But that's one incident I must say. How beautiful Swami said. I said, what do you want? I said, Swami, give me a Nishkamya life, Swami. I don't want any more. I've done enough. Swami said, I can't give you. I said, why, Swami? He said, in this life, I'll say it in Tamil. Anyway, just exactly as Swami said it. இந்த ஜன்மத்துல நீ சாதிக்க வேண்டியது நிறைய இருக்கு பங்காரு. கொஞ்சம் காமம் இல்லைன்னா சாதிக்க முடியாது. You have much sadhana in the secular world, much to achieve. And without a trace of karma, you can't achieve it. So I can't give it to you.
Beautiful.
And Swami is always known. Whenever I have a habit, I assume Swami is seeing it when I'm doing it. And it's not as if I'm doing it and Swami can't see. We know that Swami is everything. So one day I went and told him, I said, Swami, what about this little habit, Swami? What habit? Tobacco, Swami. Such a small habit. Why are you worried about it? He didn't say, stop it. Bad. You drop off. You have some vasanas left to complete. You'd never believe that Swami would say that. But I never believed when I was taking tobacco that Swami didn't know. That I was doing it behind his back. Swami has no back. He's all around. Above you, below you, side of you, underneath you, everywhere you're surrounded by a bubble of Swami.
Swami has often said that the test of God is the taste of God. And he would test everybody, every devotee goes through their round of tests before they come out. And he says, when you put a nail in the wall, after some time you shake it to see, is it firm enough or do I need to hammer more? Uh, Talk about some of the tests that Swami has
See,
taken you through and how you
after
come out stronger.
see after 2007 till then, it was just success and success. From 93 to 2007, you look at my balance sheet, there was no setback practically. When the Suzuki and I had differences, Swami said, you fight. I asked Swami, I'll fight Swami, but is it I'm fighting because my nature or it's the right thing to do? He said, no, 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 this is dharmic. I'm with you, you fight. And every 3 weeks, I used to report to Swami how our negotiations were going.
Hmm.
Then after that, we did well. 2007, we came down. It was really bad. It kept going down and down and down. And 2010, we were down in the dumps. And I remember that Orissa cyclone. I'd gone to Orissa after that, attended a CII meeting and flew from Orissa to Parthi. And rooms were so damp after the cyclone. When I came back, I had fever. I couldn't go for darshan. Yajur Mandir was built by then. So that's why VS told me, come to Yajur Mandir after darshan. Went there. And see Srinivasa, somebody said, Swami, he's got big, lots of problems for me. Big business, big problems. Sent you back.
Hmm.
He's not going to solve those problems because your karma, you have to take it. But by the time he has done the tempering and heating and quenching, and you now have the soft inner core. However much you may be tough on the outside, you have the soft inner core to withstand all those trials and tribulations. And you realize that as you go closer and closer to Swami, your karma gets burnt up faster. Therefore, your suffering is actually more than the secular man who is not going and surrendering to God.
Hmm.
So surrender is not without pain, physical pain. But to the bearer of the pain, it does not appear to be pain. Outsiders are watching it saying, what is this fellow going to Swami? All he's getting is pain. And that Chidambara Krishnan book I gave you, Sai Mahima, is only pain. So one day, VS and I were sitting in this quarters in Parthi and talking. I said, no, Mama, all these people say that, look, what is it? They're all having pain. But they don't realize we are not having pain. That body, that karma, the mind is also in pain. But you know, every now and then the mind tells you, the buddhi tells you, the mind is not you.
Hmm.
Body is not you. For years, I had a bad back. I fell down from asana and I wanted to do surgery. Swami said, no surgery. He himself produced vibhuti and took my shirt off and rubbed it on my neck and all that. For years, the doctor said, I can't believe when he did the surgery finally 2 years ago. He said, I can't believe that you lived without pinched nerve and very serious damage for almost 2008 to 2018. Now, when I opened up, there was no disc.
Hmm.
How did it happen? Okay, discomfort was there. I couldn't go to work as much. I had to have a special chair like I'm sitting on. So this office chair goes wherever I go. But Swami said, no surgery, no surgery. For almost a year, I was working only 2 hours, 3 hours a day. So Swami gives you, it was painful, yes. It affected my business, yes. But Swami equally took care.
Beautiful.
And that goes on. It goes on right through life. After that, you don't see those pain. Yeah, it is painful. I'm not saying you don't have pain. But Swami gives you the strength and the ability to bear that pain. But I want to say one thing about the love of Swami. Two incidents like this. My daughter had come back from studies and I got special permission to get her interview because Swami at that time was not calling anybody in. And he told me also, I'm not giving interview. I said, Swami, my daughter, you have to see Swami. He said, okay, call. So my daughter said, Swami, lot of disappointments for my father. That was 2010, 11 or whatever. Swami, 2010. He said, he doesn't tell me anything. How do I know? And then taps me on the head and said, good boy. And he said, don't worry, I will make all your father's disappointments into appointments. That's one way. Second, when my daughter was to go for America, she said, I will see you. Friday afternoon darshan, I still remember. Swami didn't call. What to do? He said he will call. Do we leave? Do we don't leave? I said, okay, we'll leave tomorrow. Let's see what happens tomorrow. First thing, he came very early on Saturday afternoon. And he said, I've come only for you. Called us in and said, how can I send my daughter away on a Friday? She's going to study in America. I can't send my daughter on a Friday. That's why I made you wait till Saturday. Who only a mother will do this.
True. Venu, there are a lot of Sai brothers and sisters who, what advice on this talk, what advice would you give them in this journey with Sai? What are the few things that they could be doing or they should be doing, or how would they build their relationship closer with Swami?
See, the easiest way to achieve Swami, yet the most difficult way is surrender. Surrender is at once easy and at once the most difficult. It is easy because once you surrender, he really takes care of everything. But why is surrender difficult? The mind then assumes the form of an asura and said, this fellow is going to give me away. Thy mind is diamond. So it puts a huge fight to prevent you by asking questions like, if I surrender and give everything, then what is my role? Don't I have a responsibility in doing my destiny, my duty? Karma is dharma. Don't I have to do? Who is doing? The minute you say the mind is not doing, Swami is doing, the mind has no more role to play. So it is, and it's not a one-time process. Once Swami asked me, we are going for either a sports practice or we are going in the red BMW car he had or to the Mirpuri College. As I told you, I asked Swami, what have I done in this last Janma to come? He said, Janmas. I said that at the beginning. So for me, it was probably easy because it was coming towards the end of your karma. And you had done it and the taste, ruchi and vasanas were strong with you. But for others at different levels, each of us are proceeding down the river. Some have gone ahead, some will come with you, some will come behind you. Thing is, slowly cultivate the taste for. That's why my prayer to Swami is Sri Sai Narayana Charanam at his feet. Sharanam Prapatya. I surrender at his feet. And ultimately, if you do that, you make him the Jawabdari. Then he will take complete responsibility. There's a beautiful story, again a story not truth, that Narayana was lying down on his Adisesha and Lakshmi Devi was pressing his feet. He suddenly got up. He said, what? No, some poor Brahmin is going and thieves are going to attack him. I must go. Then suddenly, next minute, he falls back and goes. So Devi asked him, what Swami, you're supposed to go, now you have fallen back. He said he has started fighting himself, so let him take care of himself. Otherwise, Narayana would have gone and saved him.
Interesting.
So slowly, and it's not an overnight process, it's a grinding process.
The other thing I'd love to hear from you about is, there was a fair amount of work that went into restoration of Sai Shruti in Kodaikanal and some of the experiences that you went through there. It would be beautiful for us to hear.
See, Swami in my time has never shown me Mahimas other than producing these rings or putting this bracelet on my thing that okay. But he has never shown me I'll go to Kodi and they say, you know what happened last week? Swami brought this big ring of Sita. And he brought me this ring which Hanuman had bitten and saying, where is the Ram Nam in it? All these kind of stories will be going on. When I go there will be no action other than pravachan. And so to me, I also understand why Swami didn't show it to me. It had no meaning for me. Because when Swami is the creator, once when Anil Kumar's brother was translating, or Kasturi, I think it was Kasturi, Pravacham ne illu. He said, world is my mansion. Swami corrected him. Prapancham is universe, not just the world. World is my mansion. Samasta loka. So when he's the creator of the universe, and you look at more and more what is being explored by these new Hubble telescopes, it's infinite. And you say that Swami produced this. Swami materialized this. I don't know what it is. He materialized the universe. And he gave you some little pinch of vibhuti. It's only his visiting card. Swami has said that many times. But here, I was working for the first time really with Madurai, it was a new building. So brother Ramani was very kind when I raised the idea with him. He said, no, you do. I will take care. I will speak to Ratnakar Central Trust. I was given a complete free hand. And my wife did the interior. I was in charge of the civil garden and all other rooms. First time when we opened it, all the roof sheets in the Bhajan hall were corroded. And my person who is in charge of construction, he said, sir, we cannot meet the time because we had given him a time. January, we started work after the monsoon, south monsoon, which is over in December. Till we want to inaugurate on Aradhana Day. This is 6 months of work to get all the sheets, put it in all that. And secondly, it's going to be 1 crore rupees. Next day morning, the sheets had no rust. They're all new sheets. I had never seen Swami's Mahima in that form. And right through the time we were working, my wife was measuring the flute, which had been lost, which was next to Swami in the where he used to give us interview. As we are measuring it, Vibhuti just drops on the shoulder of the Venugopal. When we laid food for Swami, the water goes down by half. Or there's a piece of Darbuz melon. The melon, suddenly you find it's 2 pieces. Right through the time we're sitting there and working, with the footprints of Swami will come. On the last day, I was sitting there, boys were singing. Some of the old boys had come to Kodi, had fortunately come there singing, and I was in meditation. Then brother Dave tells me, he said, Venu, I didn't want to disturb you, but as you're meditating, boys singing, the Jula started moving. And it happened to Narendranath Reddy also, doctor. When he told me he had gone for his anniversary or special birthday, he said, Venu, the Jula started. That is one place every day. Malika had parked her maroon car there, like the old BMW, in the porch, saying Swami is in residence, the Swami is come. Next day morning, full rear windscreen was full of vibhuti. And it was not small quantities. There were large quantities of vibhuti. And so, to me, that is a wonderful experience. And to me, it was something which was very fulfilling. I always wanted, Sai Shruti was Swami's Vaikunta. That was his playground. Swami was different when he was in Kodai than he was even in Bangalore, in Chai. Swami was business-like, less than Parthi. But here, Swami was carefree. And the garden had run down. Twice I went in the last 10 years. 3 people singing bhajans, empty hall. There's not even a guard at the gate. I opened the door and went in, took my car up. The garden had gone completely. And inside it was really, everything was peeling. Roof was collapsing. So, to me, it was very, very deeply saddening. This is the place where we had enjoyed with Swami. like to going to Vrindavan and seeing Vrindavan where Krishna was playing had become a desert. How would you feel? How would those gopis feel?
Hmm.
So, thanks to my wife's work in design and artistic things that she did, and the team that did the temples, Swami blessed it. So, Swami created it himself. So, Asmai Swapriti, Swayameva Karyati. What God wants, He Himself gets it done. You are not doing. There's nothing. You are fortunate that He gave you the tools in your hand and the wherewithal to do it. It was Swami who was doing it. And Swami showed at every instance in Kodai. The first day we had Ram Seva, 7,000 people turned up for Narayan Seva. And now every week, except in the Corona times, every week there are 50 people for bhajan. There are 3 people.
This was just over a year ago, right? It was as recent.
Can we believe 2019, April, all this took place, and today we can't even go there.
Yeah. Venu, one more question, right? With the large organizations that you had and all the tens of thousands of employees in these organizations where, a lot of people hold you in such high respect, I would say almost like God, where they say, you are our master, you are our driver of our destinies. And still, with all that power and all that fame and all that control that you have, you still come down with humility and know in front of Swami you are in Sharanagati mode or in surrender mode. How does this dichotomy work? Because most people in that power and position tend to think that they are God and forget their human aspect.
First 10 years of my life, I would have been like that, like other people. I am God. I am king. God is my right, as the British motto says, Dio e Mandra. So I would have been like that. Then came adversity. From 79 to 87, 8 years, I grew 10 times. Then came adversity from 87 to 92, where even my existence was in doubt. Swami came, saved me. His own hands, he lifted me, took care of me. And then the old vasanas came back. And then as you realize more and more, you came to Swami. I is less important. He is much more important. He does everything. I don't do anything. And that's why I said it's a journey. It's not that you start one day and overnight you're transformed. Although in our Puranas it will said, Jnana is like a lamp. When a lamp enters a cave, darkness becomes light instantaneously. It is not a slow process. But the mind conditioning does not happen like that. The mind conditioning is through a very complex ornament made by a jeweler with impure gold. He heats it, burns off the dross, purifies it, and then hammers it into fine, beautiful shape of Uma Maheshwara or Lakshmi Narayana, and that takes 6 months. Here it takes 60 years, 10 years, whatever time your vasanas, how strong they are. So it happens only very slowly like that. It does not happen overnight. But if more and more you leave it to him, the more and more he manages the transformation for you.
So beautiful to hear in such candid terms your transformation, your journey, how you have evolved and how that relationship has evolved, how the faith has evolved. Very beautiful. Venu, the good news is we're having a wonderful time, but the bad news is we're almost out of time. So we're down to a few questions that we have got from a few of the audience who have asked. And if you permit, I will just go through that. So one of the questions is that you have so much faith and so much love for Swami. How can we build that faith and love in a world today? How can we build that faith and love? Is there any guidelines, or is there any pointers?
I have one request. In fact, I have this request to the Institute of Higher Learning. Swami always said the legacy I'm leaving behind is my students. That's why I've always had an extra fondness for students. I've only spoken in the university. I've never spoken outside. This is my first public speech since coming to Swami in 93. So it's almost 27 years. So the reason is, it's very important. I would one day hope to see, if Swami willing, Swami will do it, is that every morning when the Veda takes place, Brother Vedanarayan is alone with 4 students chanting in an empty hall. He has seen that place resound to 3,000 voices raised. Gananam and the whole thing, just from shrieking little children to mature old voices. I would wish to see all the school children and the college, university students compulsorily, like the old days, come in the morning, finish Vedam and then go to class. Because Swami is, once my HR mentor from Unilever asked Swami, the quality of education, Swami, is not really, comparable to IIM or IIT. He said, but none of them can give these students what I am giving them.
True.
I'm giving them that strong foundation in spirituality. The end of education is character. So I would like to see all these students come every morning, do the Vedam, and then leave, as they used to leave in the break darshan, as we call it. At break time, they will all go back to the university. I think we must strengthen the university back, bring them back to basics of getting involved with Vedams and chanting and bhajans. Unfortunately, some people had the idea, no, but this is a diversion. But this is the foundation of Swami. So I think that is something that I would like to see fully brought back. And I would also, secondly, I would like to see what Swami did in Sai Shruti. The same transformation in Sundaram, in Trai, in Hyderabad, in Mumbai. Mumbai, it's called
Dharmakshetra.
Dharmakshetra. So all of them, and the international center, they're letting out the international center even for marriages and public functions in Delhi.
Right.
So we need to bring these institutions that Swami consecrated back to resounding with Swami's teaching and Swami's bhajans and Swami's Vedic chanting, and make it meaningful for young people to come and take part in that.
Vinu, there's another question which says, we're all going through a very difficult time, and this is reference to the COVID situation going around now. Sometimes we find it difficult to hold our faith at this point. How should we be thinking about it, and how should we balance ourselves at this point?
If you're born in 1890s or 1900, you saw First World War, you saw the Russian Revolution, you saw Second World War, India's partition, the pain of partition, the Bengal famine. During the First World War, after the flu, 10 million people died in India. There was a famine in the whole southern peninsula because of unusual 100-year famine, drought took place. So we grew up, those born after 95, without seeing anything of a mass scale of destruction. We thought emergency was the biggest thing that happened to this country, or China's 1962 war, 65 war. But how many people actually died or suffered? Relatively minuscule. So we are facing for the first time such a huge pandemic, worldwide crisis. There are 2 things that we need to do. If you read history, history is a guide to the future. The roots of history. So you realize it's not all that big. And now with this remdesivir drug having been found, fatalities have dropped dramatically. So look at things in proportion. Second, I'm sure in Swami's fold, whether it be students or even devotees, people are maintaining their mental equanimity. Whereas in America, everybody is going to a psychiatrist or a shrink. In America, all the WebMD talks about the psychological devastation that's happening. Prison crazy, stir crazy, they call it in America.
Mm.
I think by and large, I find in India, I speak to people, yes, there is different levels of frustration, but nothing like what you're talking about in Europe or North America, where they can't live with it. Because their world is defined only by material world. India is still the land of Dharma. Once I told Swami, Dharma Bhumi, no Swami. Tyaga Bhumi, Yoga Bhumi, Dharma Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, whatever. Swami rattled off.
Yeah, yeah.
Bharata Bhumi, he ended.
Venu, there's another question from a young professional who says that how do we balance professional corporate life, which is quite a roller coaster, pretty intense on time and work, and on the other side, the spiritual life? How do we progress on our spiritual journey despite all the pressures of the corporate life and the and the pressures on time there?
I forget, brother Samir, is it, who was from HDFC, who
Correct.
used to come to Swami? He was telling me the biggest difference he found, and his bosses in HDFC told him that Swami's students don't fatigue, they don't tire. Because Swami is bearing the load, not them.
Mm.
So only when you are having stress is a problem.
Mm.
You put it at his feet. You're going in a railway carriage, carrying your luggage on your head. And the neighbor asks, what are you doing? No, I'm taking this to Delhi. He said, idiot, this train is going to Delhi. Keep it on the floor. It will go with you to Delhi.
Mm.
So why don't you take that load and put it at Swami's feet? Swami is the boat on which you are sitting and going. Leave it on the floor of the boat. Swami, the boat will take you where you have to go.
Mm.
Easy to say, very difficult to practice. As I told you, after years of practice, you come to this Manobhava, not from day one.
Beautiful. We have time for one last question, and what the question is that from all the learnings and all the time you spent over there, what is the key one message you would give us now as the closing comment?
I would like to say that I've discovered love all, serve all is the greatest message of Swami. Whereas I started with love all, serve all being a tennis sport, today I believe it's a way of living. It provides meaning to life. And by loving all and serving all Swami, you're serving Swami in the most appropriate way.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I
Venu,
want to
thank
make
you.
one comment.
Please.
Dear brothers and sisters, I just want to say, I must thank Jitu and his colleagues or brothers, Sai brothers who helped set it up. It was a great opportunity for me also to reflect on my journey with Swami, because today, in fact, we discussed it before we started a week ago. How should we ask the question? I said, no, don't structure. Leave it to Swami. He will speak. You don't think. That's why it just flowed, because Swami was making it possible to do this. I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for reminiscing on the wonderful journey that I've been blessed by Swami to have. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Venu, beautiful session and beautiful from the heart, direct from the heart. It was like Swami was speaking to us, and all the message of Sharanagati and the heart-to-heart relationship that you have with Swami. I'm sure all of us would want to kind of build that and replicate that and see that in our lives as well. I would now request our All India President Nimesh Pandya to say the closing word of thanks to this such a beautiful session we've just had.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I have really no words to express my happiness at listening to the journey of Brother Venu Srinivasan. He's right, because I remember that one interview in Vrindavan when Kamla and I had a chance to meet Bhagwan after a gap of 3 years, as he says that we were all put in a quarantine and some kind of a testing for 3 years. And that was the occasion when I entered Vrindavan, Rai Vrindavan's interview room. And Kamla and I had been there, and Venu was ahead of us in the small little room. And as he rightly remembers, suddenly I heard an outburst of emotional outburst to him and Swami, and unfortunately we could hear it outside. And I was telling Kamla that, Kamla, when will we get this kind of a surrender to Bhagwan, when we can cry our hearts out? I mean, this is what we need to achieve. And I remember that very vividly, and I was, though he was crying inside, but I had tears in my eyes outside, that this is the kind of love that we must develop for Bhagwan. And this kind of surrender, I really relate to this whole saga of surrender that Venu spoke about. And I think that's exactly, I believe that the Satya Sai organization also is really meant for only that purpose. For all of us to be participating in this, to achieve gradually and with great commitment and a great sort of sincerity, this whole thing of surrender to Bhagwan. And I think I must confess to say that every time I've looked at Venu, whether he was sitting on the portico in the mandir, but his kind of complete detachment to what is happening around and his complete surrender to Bhagwan has been a lesson for me personally. I've seen that so many times that I have seen Venu. And his interpretation of action through his Srinivasa trust that he's now doing is really a great inspiration. He's right. I had a privilege of being with him and his team when they were talking to the district presidents of the organization. And we learned so much that we can do in a structured fashion, keeping Swami to the fore and doing exactly what it is. I must share with all the listeners today, the great, Venu doesn't only speak, he even acts. There is so much that he does and as a part of the Satya Sai organization, but never claims credit to that. And that Brother Ramani and I have always spoken about it in so many times that this is what happens. I mean, right now, the current the tribal program that the Satya Sai organization has taken up is all due to the inspiration of the Srinivasa Trust. They're doing so much work in the Nilgiri that we have drawn inspiration from that and doing this. I think I'm saying all this only to put into perspective his the highlights of his life that he has shared with us. That yes, surrender is the ultimate. There is no other alternative but to do that. And because he is the doer, he is the best. God Almighty wants to help us, and we should allow him by completely surrendering at his feet. Brother Venu, I think your saga, as far as even Kodai is concerned, yes, I've been in constant touch with Brother Ramani, and he goes gaga over all the experiences that he narrates to everyone, that he keeps us telling all the time. And this is Swami's grace. I think this is the way Swami wants to respond. And I think your life is an example for all of us, that if you surrender, then God plays wonders with us, God plays miracles with us. And when he takes care, nobody can do it better than him. I think that's an amazing story. And today I'm personally happy that you've taken this first opportunity to speak to the devotees also. I'm sure all my brothers and sisters of the organization must be very, very happy people to listen to you. You know, many more such occasions. Thank you very much, and look forward to a great journey with you along with the Satya Sai organization. And I must confess that I must say that you are a part of the Satya Sai organization in every word, in every letter of the word. Thank you very much for being with us.
Sai Ram, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, brothers and sisters, we'll close with Samasta Loka Sukhinu Bhavantu.
Samasta
Loka
Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। थैंक यू साईराम।